All right, we are 1 minute in, so I'm just gonna start. And I just want to say hello, everyone, and welcome to this very important live panel discussion on building an inclusive workplace for LGBTQ plus professionals. My name is Michael Pereira. I am a white Brazilian, cis, gay, in my early 30s. I am tall. I have a dark brown hair, brown beard. I'm wearing a white shirt with some black lines, and of course, my ever loyal and companion, my glasses is always with me as always. And as of my background here is a simple and slightly blurred setting, keeping the focus on the main important thing, which is our discussion here today. You can refer to me using the pronouns he, him, and I'm currently the Associate Director for Learning and Development at AFSA Association for International Educators. I'm also the upcoming Vice Chair for the ASAE and Professional Advisory Committee, and a member of the Communication Committee in Association Latinos. I am honored to be here and host today and be here in the presence of these amazing panelists who represent the diversity within the LGBTQ plus community and the association and non-profit professionals. I can't wait to introduce them. We're gonna very soon invite them to introduce themselves. But before we dive in, I would like just to extend my appreciation to the Association Latinos for creating this space for us to come together and engage in a brave conversation about such a vital topic. And I don't know if you are familiar, but this time couldn't be more appropriate. Earlier this month, the human rights, I just moving the slides. So earlier this month, the Human Rights Campaign declared a state of emergency for LGBTQ plus people in the United States. Just this year alone, more than 75 anti-LGBTQ plus bills have been signed into law. These include restrictions access to restrooms for transgender people, pronouns refusal law, a ban on gender-affirming health care, and the list goes on and on. So it is through this type of initiative today that we can foster understanding and supportive and ultimately create a workplace that truly embraces and empowers every individual, regardless of the sexual orientation or gender identity. So for me specifically, inclusivity and diversity are not just buzzwords, are not just July and Pride. Happy Pride, by the way. But they are the cornerstones of a thriving and successful organization. By creating an inclusive workplace that respects and values the experiences and identities of underrepresented professionals, we not only enhance employee well-being, but also foster innovation, creativity, and I don't feel I need to say that, but it's ultimately drive organizational success. So before we dive in, I would like just to invite you, because this is a safe space where everybody's welcome to express their thoughts, questions. So I want to invite you to actively engage in the discussion. Please use the chat to put your questions, comments, or concerns that you want to hear from us. Additionally, please remember to keep yourself muted during the panel so we can ensure a smooth flow of conversation. Again, we value your presence here, so thank you so much for taking the time to be here live with us or to watch here later on our YouTube channel. We very much appreciate you taking the time to learn and to make this space a welcoming space for all the community. And I know that I've spoken a lot, so without further ado, I would like to introduce our incredible panelists. Each one of them brings a unique perspective and a wealth of knowledge to today's conversation. So please join me in giving them a warm virtual welcome. And I'd like to invite Alex. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Awesome. Thank you so much, Michael. Hi, everyone. My name is Alex Vargas. I use he, him pronouns. I am a Filipino-American, cisgendered gay man. I am based in San Diego, California. I am a darker skinned Filipino American in my late 20s. I have brown hair and I am currently wearing glasses and a brown zip up polo that I very much love. It is from ASOS. And yeah, I'm really excited to be on this panel with everyone. I think this is a fantastic opportunity for us to really review the inclusivity of everything. I am a diversity, equity, and inclusion specialist at the Project Management Institute. I have been at the organization for a year, and I have been working in diversity, equity, and inclusion for about 4 years now. And I will
Thank you
pass it
so
on to
much.
Cynthia.
Cynthia?
Thanks, Alex. Well, hi, everyone. My name is Cynthia Jimenez, and I am a Mexican-American woman that identifies as a lesbian. I have dark brown hair, wearing my black glasses, and I have a black shirt on currently. My pronouns are she and her. I work as a program manager for CalCPA, which is the California Society of CPAs. I'm a committee member for the internal DEI commission at CalCPA, as well as a DEI committee member for CalSAE. Currently, I serve on the events and networking committee for Association Latinos. I live in Los Angeles with my 5-year-old boy-girl twins, our 1-year-old golden retriever, and our colorful glowfish. I just wanted to thank Association Latinos once again for providing this safe space today for our open discussion. And I'll pass it on to Yara.
Hi, everyone. I want to thank you all for inviting me in this discussion. My name is Yara. I was born in Venezuela. I'm not going to say Venezuelan American, although I am naturalized. I am a trans woman, and I am also an accounting manager for Yoga Alliance, which is a nonprofit organization that centered his services around providing professional support to yoga teachers in schools. I've been with YA for over 8-9 years, and I'm excited to be able to share my experience with all of you guys today. I also wear glasses, but you know.
It is a must for me, like wake up, put on, and go to bed and take it off, right? So we're all wearing glasses here. So thank you guys. Thank you so much for accepting being here today. We know this type of conversation is important. We know that we always seek for this space where we can talk about our own experience, and that's something that I want to highlight, that the insights shared by all of us here are based on our own individual experiences and perspectives. It's important to remember that we do not speak for the entire LGBTQ+ community. Our aim here is to create a platform for meaningful information and opportunity for everybody here to learn. So let's kick off our conversation by exploring the topic close to the heart of many of us, being out in the workplace and the significance of fostering respect for pronouns. As we can see here, each one of us has our pronouns on our chat and chosen names. So I would like to invite our panelists to talk a little bit more about your personal experience of being open about your identity in the workplace. How has that been for you? How do you identify, and considering your privilege and position of power, how has it shaped your experience? So who would like to start? I'm gonna call names.
I'll go. So for me, this is something new for me. People who know me, I'm quite introverted, but I feel that this is a very important discussion for all of us to have. And I feel like in my professional life, I am moving on up, I would say. When I first started working in the nonprofit industry, I was not out. I kept it very much a secret. I grew up in a very strict Catholic home, which when I told my family, they told me not to tell anybody about it. So I kind of just had that in the back of my mind and carried that into my work life as well. I did early on receive some bias from some leaders in my career. I just remember one instance where I was sharing my photo of my family, which was my ex-wife at the time, with my kids. And a leader kind of made a comment and said, "Oh, wow, that looks like she could be your sister." And I just got taken aback with that. And I kind of just kept inside like, okay, I can't tell anybody because, people are already saying things. And I felt really uncomfortable in that moment. And fast forward now to today, I feel really comfortable in my own skin and kind of where I've come and how long I've come along. And I just feel that it's very important for us to speak on this today and kind of be that voice for people who aren't out at work and don't feel comfortable enough speaking up.
Thank you for sharing that, Cynthia. I have two sides of a similar experience. I started out my career as a gay man, and I was always very colorful and zesty, as some people would say, right? And I believe that all of my life I've been a trans woman And conditioning and culture and religion have assisted me in hiding in plain sight and learning somebody else's like physical body movements and personality and posturing in order to see through the next day or to get a position or to be seen as a professional. And I think as a gay man, it's always been a struggle being seen as just a professional who wants to just grow and learn like everyone else. In the pandemic, I began my transition. It was something that I was simmering and percolating into the surface. And while the world was hiding, it was a perfect opportunity for me to learn how to socially transition and essentially effectively lead into making other transitions in my life. And I would say that you never transition by yourself. The environment around you and the people that surround you transition with you. So far, that's been my professional experience.
Thank you, Yada. I appreciate that. This is Alex. I think for me, my experience, I've always been out in the workplace. At my first organization, it was a tech company, and it was fairly well received. The last organization as well, it was in the medical space. And even now at the Project Management Institute, I've been very fortunate to work at organizations that, one, have had some sort of diversity and inclusion programming that have made it comfortable and honestly safe for me to be out in the workplace. But I've definitely experienced similar things to you, Cynthia, where I have had I've had pictures of my partner and I've had the same reference of, oh, you both look like brothers. And there's a feeling of uncomfortability and having to navigate through those emotions, especially in the workplace, because you're held to the standard of being a professional. And it always gives me some pause when I do have to come out every day with whomever I'm around, because it's uncomfortable. It's one of those things you kind of have to lean into, and to really understand what that's like is something to be in the LGBTQ community.
That is such a good point. And in terms especially of like coming out over and over and over, I feel that's the constant thing that we face in the workspace. And once you feel comfortable is one thing, but like when you're not, it's the challenge that like, when can we come out? Or like, can we come out? How affected are we going to be if we do, right? And I know, that you particularly also like, I love that you mentioned that it's not on your own transition, it's everybody who is around you who also goes through that process. And I think we're gonna love touch base in terms of pronouns, because I think that's one of the points about like respecting other people's pronouns and their chosen names as well. But in my perspective, and especially we all being Latinos here, we understand that we are a very conservative culture, and I of course grew up in a very conservative family as well. So for me, coming out in my personal life took a very long time, and mostly because of the exposure to the gay community. Like I didn't have that exposure. I knew I was different, but I wasn't sure what it was, right? It was just like mostly Brazilian. My dad wants me to play soccer, and I was just like, I hate playing soccer, but my sister loved this, so like, go with her. But I was very much forced in that kind of like, per se, masculinity stereotype of like, you must play soccer because you are a boy. So like growing up, it took me forever just to understand who I am. And I feel like after understanding, there is a long journey to be comfortable with who you are. And then like the long journey about like being comfortable to open yourself to others and be like, yes, I am gay. Like, it seems so easy for me to say this out loud today, but like know that the process for many of us like takes long. And some people, I believe, the data was like 46% of people are still not out in the workplace, and that speaks volumes in terms of like the comfortability that we feel in terms of like how that is going to affect us. And especially for me, when you talked about like positions of power, and if anybody feel comfortable to elaborate a little bit more, that if you see that you have any position of power within our own community. We specifically for the gay community, I would say there's a lot of the stereotype for like the effeminate gay and the masculine gay, right? And it's kind of like a whole other conversation, but it does give me that privilege of like coming to the room and then have that powerful voice, if you want to use that word, but like just because I try my best to not kind of represent the femininity that we have as well. But does anybody has any other things to say in terms of like positions of power?
I think it's just important. Oh, sorry, Alex. I think it's just important for employers to remember, like you mentioned, Michael, is that not everybody's comfortable being out. And sometimes I feel like maybe they assume somebody is gay, or and they might treat them a certain way. It's just, I think that's just something to remember, because we all have our personal lives where we're all dealing with coming out every day, and then like you said, it carries on into work as well. And that's just something for employers just to remember.
That for sure. Has anybody here feel directly impacted by the challenge faced by the LGBTQ plus individuals in the workplace?
Yes. Yeah. I think that the challenges are very political, and they're centered around like personal biases and how people will prefer to see you. I think generally people enjoy the idea of a happy gay person who is agreeable and who is like affirming to someone else's experiences, like, oh girl, you look good, hey girl, yes, like I think that's been the general observation I've had with like cis heterosexual people. And it sort of like flows into their perceptions of you and their expectations of how you should show up in professional spaces. And I think there's also a stereotype where they expect you to be the perfectionist, the one that excels at everything, the one that knows how to somersault and provide a perfect spreadsheet, like, and also bring them entertainment and fun. And like you said, Cynthia, we are human beings that have to deal with and juggle so many realities, so many types of responsibilities outside of work. And yes, the stereotype can be harmful, especially for gay men who are just masculine, and that's who they are, So, and gay women who, don't, I think the expectation for gay women is mostly for them to be masculine too. So it's kind of like.
Yeah,
Yada, I really like that call out, because I find that people, especially in the workplace, expect us in the LGBTQ community to be a monolith and to we are representing our identity. And for me as a gay man, the expectation of you have to be funny, you have to be a perfectionist, you have to show up and really deliver. And it almost comes across from my other identity as being a person of color and trying to prove myself in these spaces of I'm perfect, so they don't have anything to like ding me on, right? When it comes to performance, you want to make sure that there's nothing that they can hold against you. And it almost feels like there's those pieces of your identity where when you get to the table, because you are gay, because you are a person of color, because you are a woman, those things are like almost weighing you down. And it's a hard thing to really wrap your mind around, especially in a professional setting. So it's that constant struggle of figuring out what can you do to break away from that, and what can you do for people to see you as a human being first, and not necessarily just those singular pieces of your identity.
Yeah, Yada, I think you hit it on the point too. Sorry, on the point too about stereotypes. I know I mentioned to the panel before is when I first get jobs, people would never think that I would be a lesbian, because I don't fit that stereotype of what a lesbian looks like in their mind. So then I get all the assumptions. I have children, so they automatically think that I have an ex-husband. Then it's uncomfortable conversations about, so what does your ex-husband do, or this or that? And it's just, oh, I was married to a woman. So it's like this whole thing that like, it just spills out, and then, you know, it's quite uncomfortable, but I understand that sometimes you have to educate people and kind of get them to know a little bit more about your life. So I understand that point of it. But, you know, like we said, it's just the whole stereotypes too of, you know, being a lesbian, what does a lesbian look like, you know, so.
I guess that if that also brings to the point about like when we speak about stereotyping and what we should look like or how we should behavior in terms of like the workspace, but bring to the point of intersectionality as well, right? Because then like not only we're representing here like our own community of like gay, lesbian, etc., but also like we're Latinos, right? Like so we bring that double to the table of like, all right, they're literally expecting us to very much succeed here, otherwise, right? Like especially Latino is always like on point and the extra work and still fighting for our presence in the association as a Latino. And now we need to fight for our presence as a Latino gay within the association, right? So like it does add so much weight on our back about like trying to represent and trying to fight for our own space within this this industry per se.
And Michael, I want to say also, not only there's like a layer, right? Especially when you're also of color. You know, indigenous descent or Asian descent or brown, other, or Black descent. I think that's an extra layer to having to overcome those other stereotypes as well. Especially the darker you are, that's when you show up as first, right? So when you're on the darker end of the spectrum, people see your skin tone first.
Yep.
And then they begin judging you based on that. And then they go into the rest, like, oh, you are not within the binary. You're not, and for those of you who don't know the binary, we're talking about like the gender binary, male, and female, and what those stereotypes would look like. So if you don't fit those norms, then people like clock you and they spot you and they want to somehow build this personality that you're supposed to have. In overcoming those challenges, in order for you to prove yourself as a professional, a capable, a strategist, sound-minded, willing to participate, collaborate, inform, make the organization grow with you. Yeah.
That's very important. I think that as we speak about the stereotyping and the expectations, and I think Cynthia, you mentioned in terms of also understanding that some people are not comfortable speaking about this and coming out. I would like to just ask your thoughts, and based on your experience, like what strategies have you found effective in cultivating like awareness and understanding among employees in the you know, to use correct pronouns, for example. I know that you are going through your transition right now and chosen names, but like even like in general, in terms of like creating that inclusive and welcoming space in your association, like what have you seen that worked and what didn't work? I'm gonna call Cynthia to speak.
Oh, okay. For me, I would say that working where I am at now, we do have an internal DEI committee as well as an external DEI committee for our association members. And I just feel personally that it's important for me to be on the panel. That's the way that I feel like I'm helping by sharing my experiences, helping people to learn about the pronouns. And if we send out a survey, make sure we include, you know, all options and just things like that. I just feel like the voice that I have is important. And either if I'm, you know, speaking on a panel or just in a small discussion group, I feel that just sharing my experiences can help change the experience for someone else.
I love that. I am a part of a volunteer committee within my organization. It's an equity team. It's also important for me to be a voice in that room, and for other new employees or existing employees outside of that team to see someone like me involved. It definitely presents a level of a layer for the organization. It makes the organization look like they're invested in diversity. I am aware of my presence, and I'm aware that I bring something specific for the organization that the organization can then so they can be seen as accepting and diverse. So I think is a reciprocated advantage as well. Because it is important for me to also be visible and show that my existence and what I bring and the quality of work I bring, it's all tied together. So
Yeah.
I changed names about twice in my organization as I was moving through my transition. So I went from my
How
original.
did you feel that they were receptive to that?
They were very receptive. There were individuals who I've observed that they were struggling with it. And I think that because my pronoun is within a binary spectrum, it wasn't a hard transition. People are just like, okay, she, her, whatever. Had I been a they, them, that
Absolutely.
people would have thrown the dictionary at me and the
Right.
whatever, the English and like language book, whatever we call that, right? But I think that we do have a non-binary people employees in our organization, so I'm happy that we are able to represent that as well.
Yeah, I really like that. I think from my experience, just embodying through action on how you can be inclusive in the workplace. I have it a little bit easier because I work directly in diversity, equity, and inclusion at all of the organizations that I've been at. But I've also been on committees where we were given special privileges on really formulating what D&I strategy is. But at this organization that I'm at now, at Project Management Institute, it's been a fantastic opportunity to really grow voices and stories from around the organization. I work in amplifying other people's voices during different months to ensure that there's the wide variety of people that we have at our organization to be heard. So for June, I actually was able to curate some voices from around the organization for Pride Month, and for them to share their experiences as an out individual, as well as an individual to share their achievements and accomplishments at the organization. So it's giving breath to who they are as individuals, but it's also not taking away from the fact that they are employees and they're people that you work side by side with and that you work on projects with. And by doing something like that and leading through example, I find you create an inclusive workplace around you, and then it continues to grow and grow, and it ultimately it changes the culture of the organization that you're at.
Absolutely. I think that's so important also to remember that here as an association and nonprofit industry, we are representing other members and the community that we serve, right? So it's not only like what we are doing internally. I would say, like my mom always say, like keep your house clean. Like it's very important. So then people also like gonna see from outside that you're a clean person. But it's just so kind of like having the perspective of like you are focused on your staff, on people who are representing and working for you. And also that was going to reflect very much so on the community that you're representing and taking into consideration all the efforts that you're doing into the community and the members. And an example that I give you is in my previous association, I oversee all the educational professional development programs. And I didn't notice a lack of diversity within not only representation of like speakers, of topics, of accessibility in our content, but also like, you know, who you're targeting, who is our audience that we are serving here. And we forgot to see that we have a very diverse group of members who needed us, and we're not even providing the resources to them. So it's kind of like what Alex mentioned, kind of like embody through the action, right? Like lead by example, walk the talk. It's about also like internally being able to, you as a leader, you as an executive, representing and showing how important this community and this diversity, and I'm not even specifically saying here about the LGBTQ+, but the underrepresented community is for your own association, inside and outside, right? And how the work that you're doing and the walk the talk is also reflecting outside. And a silly example that we're giving here today, and I'm sorry to say silly, but I know some people feel like that it's a taboo still, but it's putting the pronoun after your name, right? It means so much for other people, right? To feel seen, to feel that they can be respected by the way that they want to be called and referred to. And I think that in terms of other strategies, like being intentional on the education that you give to your staff and employees, right? Like not only just give like a LinkedIn learning on unbiased, unconscious bias, but like being intentional to the reasoning why, right? And then show up and explain and create a program path that allow others to feel involved. And one last thing that I want to say, because I know this is a safe space, but I want to jump to the next question. But it seems that you mentioned in terms of like being part of a DI committee and this being a brave space, I wanted to say, because I have seen in many other associations, DI is a very like keyword right now. And there's a lot of committees right there that does not represent the diversity that is in there. So make sure that when you create that group, that community that's going to represent others, they actually are speaking, they actually have space and the seat at the table to be able to speak for that. And I'm sorry, I went above and beyond on these. I got very excited. Does anybody has anything else to add before I move on to the next topic?
There is one question that Jen provided in the chat.
Go ahead. I cannot see the chat. Can you say it, Jana?
Yeah, for any of the panelists, do you have any advice or for finding support at work if there are no DEI efforts of community?
I can speak from my experience. So at the first organization I ever worked at, it was a tech organization. And I noticed that there was no diversity and inclusion effort at all. And there were several others actually in the LGBTQ community from my organization that worked in Chicago and on the East Coast as well. And all of us got together and really started talking through why there was nothing that was representing us. And how were we able to move to the next level as LGBTQ professionals, as professionals in general? How are we going to career advance? And we actually created and curated a presentation for our executive level team and pitched it to them and let them know that diversity and inclusion is here to stay. And it is something that is needed and necessary at all organizations, because not all organizations are a singular identity. You're going to come across people of all backgrounds. And it was really well received. And from there, they actually gave us permission to start a DE&I initiative, as well as a steering committee, which included the launch of 7 employee resource groups that I headed. So it's taking steps, actionable steps at an organizational level, bringing your problem solving with you, and really curating a plan to execute on what that looks like. And there are plenty of resources out there that really help you start an initiative like that. But it just takes the dedication and the volunteer time to be able to do that.
And unfortunately, sometimes it takes our own strength and dedication to do it, right? And see that we are not being represented, and then take the actions to do it. Unfortunately, I say it because it is a taboo to have the DI within associations. And adding to what Alex was mentioning, I think that rely also that the external resources that you have, like the community, Association Latinos here, we are here. And I feel like the thing that I always appreciate about the association industry is that community, that support that we all offer. Like, for example, you might not have any DI within an association, but there's many others that succeed and have that. Cynthia is another example that has very good DI community right there. So having like her as a support and being able to talk and be like, I need your help. How do I start these? Or like, rely on others as well, because this is our fight, right? Like this is our work. So we are here together on this. Anybody wants to add anything before I move on to the next question?
I would say that Alex, like you put it so perfectly. I think that when there is a lack of DEI visibility, especially in a post-pandemic world where that has become a very important topic of conversation that cannot go ignored, I think there is an opportunity to build. And I'm not saying that every LGBT person should be like forthcoming and brave to do something like that. But I think that the way you handled it is that you build a coalition of LGBT people in that workspace and came up with a good action plan. So I think that I think it's great to communicate, create that internal network, and you know, really use your talents to turn that the organization. Organizations are looking for that type of staff as well, to help them build, right? To help them build their brand, to help them build their internal culture. And it also ultimately helps them build their facing, like what they face to the public. So
Yeah. I think it's important too, just to remember, like you both mentioned about community. I know how it's like to feel very alone often on my journey, and just know that like there's always other organizations out there that you could reach out to like build your community outside of your association. And yeah, it's just important to know that you're not alone. We're all dealing with this every day. So
absolutely. So our next topic like revolves around basically a continuation of what we were talking right now, but building an inclusive workplace and learning how to, you know, establish an environment that not only embraces, but empower, right, LGBTQ plus professionals. And it's all about gaining those key insight statics. So I want to open the conversation based on your own experience again. And we want to know, what does LGBTQ plus inclusion in the workplace look like to you? It's a very philosophical question, I know.
You know, that goes hand in hand with Joyce Patterson question in the chat, which is like all kind of lines up perfectly. I think a really good way to show support is the organization, the companies having employees of this level have the opportunity to look for subject matter experts and bring them into the conversation, and have a third party person deliver the message, right? When the responsibility is placed on a particular employee to educate the rest of the staff, it does become, we should never go there, right? The responsibility should be on the organization to inform and bring subject matter experts to really deliver the message and educate. And I think my organization did that. They brought a company called Trans One-on-One, and they provided like a 3-hour training, and then it was like broken down. They discussed on gender pronouns. What does it mean? What is non-binary versus trans? Like all those key things that are nuances and that feel like very foreign to people, have someone else deliver that message. And after that conversation, folks that are cis and maybe even heterosexual themselves, they started talking to each other, and people shared their experiences where they have a son or a daughter who is questioning. And you come to know that, yes, in the professional workspace, you might see people who may not be part of the community or visibly part of the community, but they're tied to family members, to friends, to people outside of their circle. And it educates them personally as well. So I think it's a more, I think we present it's a more universal conversation, I think. And it's up to the employers to provide that education.
absolutely. Yeah, for us, as I mentioned before, we do have an internal DEI committee, which are my colleagues and I, and we report on things that we're going to be working on externally as well. We've had several outside speakers come in, like Yara, and do trainings on such like unconscious bias, allyship, things like that. And it was very well received. A lot of them are now carrying it over into their own workplaces from what they learned from our committee. Another thing that I would say my organization has done pretty well is take action. They don't just say, like in the past, they say, oh yeah, we support the LGBTQ plus community. But as of last year, we started making a presence at Pride. And I felt like that was an important step forward, just not in my association alone, but as association members, just trying to bring more diversity within the accounting profession. So that was one big step forward, I felt like, for our organization. And there was pushback. I think anytime there's change, people are a little bit uncomfortable. But I feel like for, one person to, send a negative comment, there's about 10 to 100 more people who are for it. So it's always important to remember that there's so many supporters out there, and it's okay to have, some people that don't agree with it. But I think the most important thing is just to keep moving forward and keep the momentum going.
Yeah, I'd like to expand on that as well. I think the first thing is the introduction to all of these things, right? So it comes with awareness and it comes with education, and that's the easiest way to get people into understanding what it is to be LGBTQ, what it is to be a person of color, what it is to mean to be a woman, to be neurodivergent, or in the disability community. That often, okay, I find that oftentimes that there's a way to be an effective ally by bringing people to that table and sharing their stories, but also by supporting when they're not in the room. We've talked about this in a few of our calls leading up to this, but allyship is a verb. You have to be able and willing to be actionable within the workplace. And that's pushing for more programming around unconscious bias, around inclusivity in the workplace, around just understanding what does it mean to belong in your workplace? What does it mean to feel included? And statistically, it proves that diverse teams have higher percentages of success. It's proven in projects as well, that when you have a diverse group of people leading an initiative, you get more perspective and you get a better outcome than what you expected if people were not given the opportunity to speak up or be involved. And I find that all of those things are a great starting point. And I think, to Yada's point, bringing in an expert within those fields is also a really great opportunity for people, because they may not believe those around them, right? There may not be the trust of their colleagues, but if you bring a person in as a subject matter expert, they might be more willing there, or vice versa, depending on your organization. They might not be willing to listen to an expert outside, but they might be willing to say, oh, Cynthia and I work together, so I believe Cynthia because we have a personal relationship there. So it's both and offering the opportunity for education and awareness throughout, for people to start to understand what it is and how to approach it more effectively.
Absolutely. And I was reflecting as you guys were giving such good points in terms of resources and what inclusion looks like. And I think, like, when I think about what inclusion looks like to me, is inclusion means basically taking out fully the meaning of the word of inclusion. DI, we have diversity, we have equity and inclusion. Like, it's beyond actually having a seat at the table, but it's also taking actions that allow the other person to be included within that conversation, right? The representation here is not only the visual, but also the ideas and how much that we can offer into this conversation. So when I see that organizations are allowing us, and when I say us, I'm speaking for, like, I think, like, underrepresented community, it gives us more the what is the word I'm looking for? The concept and the idea of, like, it is an inclusive phrase, and I'm open here and I can come out here. And in terms of, like, also overseeing, like, like, non-discriminatory policies, I feel like those very important documentation that represent, like, actions that can be taken if you are discriminated within your own association. It's very, very important nowadays, and it should be considered like a best practices. I know Yara touched on a very good point in terms of, like, bringing the subject matter expert, and we're gonna give a shout out, give it like opportunity for experts that actually are in the community. I feel like I over time see also, like, people who absolutely ally is very important with us, but, like, give it the opportunity for those who are part of our group to speak for us and should be able to represent the subject. But I know we are almost running out of time, and we know we have a lot to talk still, but I want to touch base, Alex, to talk about allyship. And I want to kind of like a little bit talk more about that, and would love to get your insights on how important it is to be an ally for underrepresented community, and more importantly, what steps can individual and organizations take to better support and uplift these communities? Do you want to start, Alex, since we were like talking already about the allyship?
Sure. Yeah, and I also wanted to include Joy's question in that as well, when it comes to inclusion in affinity groups to the LGBTQ community. Some actionable steps that my organization has taken within the last year has been creating an ERG, or employee resource group program, given to different communities that are within our organization. So we have 4 employee resource groups. One is for women, one is for LGBTQI plus individuals, one is for neurodivergent and disability, and the other one is for African heritage. And all of those are open to allies as well. It is a space in the community for people to really commune in the professional setting. We offer things such as events and professional development and growth there. All of our employee resource group leads are volunteers at the organization and have really stepped up to make our environment inclusive and make it feel like you belong in the workplace. Even today, actually, an hour before this meeting, we had an LGBTQ plus Pride Month event where we brought in a drag performer, and they got to talk about their experience within that space and really share that with the organization. And I find that having communities be able to meet in that way, but also providing a professional development sense, is the first step in allyship, because you went out and you created something actionable. And then that part of the organization, that group, can meet in an official capacity for them to really figure out how it is to navigate through the workspace. And I find that that's really helped people open up. And I'm always going to be an advocate for employee resource groups. It's one of the things that I always try and start if it's not at an organization. It's what I try and do to bring an inclusivity aspect to the workplace, because when you're around people that you're comfortable with, I find that it can really boost your productivity. But I think those actionable steps are really the first steps, in my opinion.
Very well said.
I like to think that allyship is wonderful when it's consistent, even when the weather is not nice, right? So it seems as though like people want to be more allyship. They want to show up during the June month or Pride months, but every other part of the year, or when there is a controversy in the news, or someone that messes up in some way, and they hide under a rock, and they take away the pride flags, and they take away all these things. And I think what the community needs the most is accomplices, someone who is willing to stick around even when the weather is not nice, who actually believes in the cause, and who organizations that are there for the betterment of their employees, overall.
Yeah, I think just like both touched on was just taking action, and also all year round, not just during Pride Month. And that's across the board for all diverse groups. I feel like it's important, to make sure that everybody feels represented, not just LGBTQ plus community, but everybody across the board. So.
Yeah, it's like providing, like when you think about, I was reflecting a lot of the question Joy just brought up in terms of the importance of affinity groups and all of that, but it's about creating that safe space, right? Or creating that safe resource. And it's all combined about representing and showing, demonstrating that you are with us on this fight, that you are an ally, and very much so shows how important that is. Again, for all the underrepresented community as well. Or even maybe the healthcare, right? Maybe there is something that we can potentially look into there as an association that we can better support the community. So there's always those very could seem small, but not very small for us, that we haven't seen anything that support us. So I definitely appreciate everybody's comments here. Is there anything else that you want to add before? Because I feel like that was mostly our last question. I do want to give you the opportunity for, I know that we have been addressing most of the questions here, but if anybody has more questions that they want to ask, I would like to open the conversation here with all of you participants. Is there any question that we haven't addressed yet? I'm now catching up with the chat. I love it that, like, is the LGBTQ plus community responsibility to teaching us more about us without it being offensive? Is it our responsibility?
I think there's a learning learning tact. I think tact is applicable at so many levels, not just LGBT people, right? So I think the basis of learning tact, going back to what you were taught as a child, right?
Yeah.
Like learning to maintain a space for everyone else to inhabit your environment also. I think it's great. You don't have to be ready or prepared or know everything in order to show respect, to show a level of understanding, and to just say, hey, listen, I don't get you, but you respect me, so I'm gonna respect you in return. I think that's mostly the basis of it. And really give yourself a break. You don't need to learn everything about someone to, again, show compassion, to show kindness. So I think that's what it is. And I think I'm saying I think a lot, but I want to say that creating safety is the outcome of having a brave space. I think I said that in a way that I wanted to say it. It starts with bravery, right? And then you build on there and build an environment of safety after that.
And I feel like it's important because you're touching something that I really like, the difference between safe and brave. And it is one of the content that I have created before, because I feel like that's important. Like we always talk about like a safe space for us, a safe space for being like, this is safe for me to be here. But there's a very big difference for me to be brave enough to speak up, understanding the repercussion of like the other people's action is going to be they're listening, they're understanding, rather than just be discriminatory, right? Or rather than just being like, oh, all right, so like, by the way, you're fired. But like, so be able to. I feel like that's the goal of association. That's my kind of like my view of the best inclusive is to be able to have that brave space where the question that Joy mentioned before in terms of like coming to the leadership team and be like, we don't have a DEI community. Like, do you want, like, we need to be able to build this X, Y, and Z. So like brave space for me is creating that scene where we feel comfortable to just be ourselves, but also to be able to share the needs that we need, the things that we need to say within that is affecting us. Anything to add, Alex or Cynthia? If you know, I have a question here in terms. I know that we have 5 minutes in. Do we have time for a question here? And I know that I'm the host. I should know this question, the answer for this question, because I do know that Josie and Intersectional Latino want to say something before we all go. So I would like just to invite. I think Josie, are you going to be jumping in and share your screen?
Hi, thank you, Michael. Thank you on behalf of the Board of Directors and Association Latinos. We just want to thank you. We are just so moved by your presentation today. Thank you. And for our attendees today, we just want to share with you a few more details about Association Latinos and how you can support us because, currently all of our offerings are free. Whatever we are offering in terms of webinars. So just want to, first of all, share our sponsors, and you can go to our website also as well. And so let me just see here. Let's see here. And take a look at who our sponsors are as well. So first, we're going to start with our sponsors. And these are, as we talk about today, we talk about organizations who support diversity initiatives. What we're sharing on our screen are organizations who have aligned themselves with our mission and vision. So if you go to associationlatinos.org, we have a sponsorship page. You can link to any of these organizations, learn more about them, learn, any potential opportunities they may have for you as well. But these are people who have committed to the mission and vision of Association Latinos, and their support is what enables us to bring the programming that we offer so far. Yes, I'm sorry. Let's see. Did I stop sharing?
No, there was me.
Okay.
I clicked the wrong button. I'm sorry.
That's okay. And then the next thing we want to let you know is also on our website. You personally have the opportunity to donate and support Association Latinos so that we can continue to build upon our mission. We are doing great work. Two of our panelists today are volunteers on our committees. So if you are interested in joining us, you can do that, but also you can make a personal donation of any amount to support us as we move forward. So we'll drop that link in the chat as well. So yeah, I'm going to stop sharing so you can close up with any final thoughts you may have, Michael.
Before I do the closing, I want to give the opportunity for our wonderful panelists to say a final word if you'd like to. Say is no, is it?
I want to say that I'm so thankful to have gotten to know each and one of you a little bit. And that I've gotten the opportunity to also speak up on my experience. It's a very unique opportunity, and I'm excited to be here. And getting to know more about Association Latinos and what they've represented. I've seen some of the panels in the past, and they've been very insightful and very great. So it's exciting. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you everybody for being here. Everybody as panelists, everybody here on the chat. I feel like it's very important for us to have this space, and especially gratitude to our panelists for being comfortable speaking about their own journey, their own experience. We know that it's not easy, and I'm happy that we're able to create this space for us. And again, a final thank you for the Association Latinos. It's a wonderful opportunity, and we appreciate you for creating this space not only for the Latinos, but for our community as LGBTQ+ as well. So thank you so much, everyone. I hope this journey of learning continues. I hope that you continue to be curious, to always, because I know the acronyms and the LGBTQ+ QIA always continues, but it's just because we want to be inclusive of all. And we just want, not because we want it to be extra, we just want to make sure that everybody's here and everybody's seen and everybody feels that they are welcome into this space. So thank you for continuing this journey of learning with us and creating this space, a brave space. So thanks so much.